otherwise prohibited by the law. So, sabi ko dito is the processing of personal shall be permitted only if not otherwise prohibited, if hindi siya lumabag sa batas natin. So, yun, clear? And section 13 is sensitive personal information and privileged information. So, the processing of sensitive and personal information and privileged info shall be prohibited. So, hindi dapat natin gawin yung mga sensitive personal information, lalo na wala tayong kakayahan para doon, if we are just a regular human being na para tayo basta-basta dapat mag-access lang na yung personal information is very sensitive kasi lahat naman tayo is meron tayong datas na kailangan maingatan. Syempre sa atin yun, and we shall not be exposing our data. So next. So section 14, the subcontract of personal information. So personal information controller may subcontract the processing of personal information provided. That the personal information controller shall be responsible for ensuring the proper safeguards are in place to ensure the confidentiality of the personal information process, prevents its use for unauthorized purposes, and generally comply with the requirements of this Act and other laws of information. The personal information processor shall be comply with all the requirements of this Act and applicable to laws. So, sa subcontract naman is, ang isang information daw is by subcontract sa pag-process ng information. So, ang isang information daw is a controller shall be responsible for ensuring the proper safeguards are in place to ensure the confidentiality of the personal information process. So, malinaw naman na kailangan daw is naka-proper or na-ensure yung safetyness and the confidentiality ng isang information bago ito ma-process. So, and the personal information processor shall be comply with all the requirements of this Act and other applicable laws. Applicable laws. So, kailangan ma-comply lahat, mag-meet yung requirements niya. So, section 15, the extension of privileged communication. So, personal information controllers may invoke the principle on privileged communication over privileged information that they lawfully control or process, subject to existing laws and regulation. Any evidence gathered on privileged information is inadmissible. So, yun. So, dito naman tayo sa rights of the data subject. On section 16, instead, it says that data subject have the right to know if their personal is being processed. So, may karapatan ng isang tao malaman yung kanilang personal information is being processed na ba daw. So, before personal information is processed, data subject should be provided with description of the personal information, purpose of processing, scope and method of processing, recipients or classes of we may access the information, methods for automated access and extent of authorization, identity and contact details of the controller of representatives, storage period of information, existing of rights, access, correction, complaint, and lodging. So before dapat ma-process isang personal information ng data subject should be provided by this. So, itong list na to is ang kinakailangan bago ma-process yung isang information. So next, under the section 17, transmissibility of rights of the data subject. So the law hears and assigns that the data subject may invoke the rights of the data subject for which he or she is here or assigned at any time after the death of the data subject, or when the data subject is incapacitated or incapable of existing the rights as enumerated in the immediately preceding section. Next is Section 18, right to data portability. The data subject should have the right, where the personal information is being processed by electronic means and in a structured commonly used format, to obtain from the personal information controller a copy of data undergoing the process in an structured format. So dito naman is we are using an structured format, which commonly used as follows for further use by the data subject. So the commission may be specified the electronic format referred to above, as well as the technical standards, modalities, and procedures for their transfer. So Section 19, the non-applicability. So the immediately preceding section are not applicable if the processed personal information are used only for the needs of scientific statistical research of the basis, such as no activities are carried out and no decision subject provided. So yung mga basta-basta na lang nang wala namang enough reason para magkaroon ng conduct ng research, no? So the personal information shall be held under the strict confidential, shall be not be allowed use of the declared purpose is walang purpose. So next is about the security of personal information. Section 20. The personal information controller must be implement a reasonable and appropriate organizational, physical, and technical measures are intended for protection of personal information against any accidental or unlawful destruction, alteration, and disclosure, as well as against any other unlawful processes. So, sabi daw dito is kailangan the personal information control must be implement a reasonable karason-rason and appropriate, which dapat correct na organizational structures. So, and intended for protection. So, since nasa security naman tayo ng personal information, so must be intended for protection and for personal information against any accidental or unlawful destruction. So, note, so the personal information controller shall be implemented measures to protect personal information against natural dangers such as accidental loss or destruction, and human dangers such as unlawful access, fraudulent misissue, unlawful destruction, alteration, and contamination. So, malinaw naman siguro na shall be implement yung kanina rin na reasonable and appropriate measures to protect ang isang personal information. So, the determination of the appropriate level of security is under this section must taken the nature of the person shall be protected, the risk presented by the processing, the size of the organization and complexity of its operation, current data privacy, best practices, and cost of the security implementation, subject to guidelines as the Commission may issue from time to time. Morning, ma'am. Today, the accountability for transfer of personal information. So, under Section 21, principle of accountability is responsible for personal information under its control or custody, including information that have been transferred on a third party for processing, whether domestically or intentionally, subject to cross-border arrangement and cooperation. The personal information controller is accountable for complying with the requirements of this act, shall be used contractual or other reasonable means to provide a comparable level of protection while the information are being processed by a third party. So, the personal information controller shall be designated an individual or individuals who are accountable for the organization compliance with this act. The identity of an individual so designated shall be made to known to any data subject upon request. So, next is about the security of sensitive personal information in government. Section 22, responsible for the heads of the agencies. So, all of sensitive personal information is maintained by the government. Its agencies' instrumentalities shall be secured as far as practicable with the use of most appropriate standard recognized with the information